So I guess there are three things I'd like to mention tonight. First, of course, to honor the lives and memories of tragic the people who lost their lives. We all know how tough that is. We pray for them. We pray for their families. We know that every one of their families and friends will walk around with a hole in their heart. Having lived through 9/11, I know what this is like, having lost friends there. And it's just a terrible, terrible tragedy. Second, I'm going to thank the first responders who were just amazing. That's the word to describe them, amazing. I spoke to a couple of fire experts, and the fact that this very hot fire didn't spread is a tribute to the men and women of the volunteer fire departments that came on the scene. They risk their lives, they don't get paid, they do it because they care. They're the best of America and the best of Western New York. And I'm going to mention some people about that later. And third, just a pledge from at least the federal aspect, speaking on behalf of the entire delegation. We will do anything and everything it takes to help those who lost loved ones and to help the communities here who rallied so valiantly after the tragedy occurred. So I'll talk about all three of those in a minute. And then I also spoke to Ray LaHood, and I want to talk about that too. First, about the victims. You know, I knew Beverly Eckert, who was here from Western New York. She lost her husband, Sean Rooney. They both went to Canisius High School. I knew her. She was a fighter. She was making sure all the time that she held everyone in Washington's feet to the fire, that 9/11 wouldn't happen again. And of course, she was coming up here to go to a ceremony at Canisius High School, setting up a scholarship for her husband. Amazing. But you know what? I'm sure that the families and friends of every one of the other victims, maybe not as well known, but have stories of quiet strength and dignity and grace that they will tell and retell. And you can tell those stories, and we should, but it won't make up for this tragic and horrible loss. One can only say when one confronts it. You know, a month earlier we were all sort of exulting that Flight 1549 landed safely on the Hudson River because of the brave pilot and crew. And of course then this happens, and all you can say is God works in ways we don't understand. There's a reason for it all, but it's very hard to figure. In terms of the first responders, our firefighters, our sheriffs, our police, our EMS, I mean, again, the whole world has seen what Western New York's all about when they saw the volunteer firefighters rush to the scene immediately and do the job that they did. I just visited that scene. And to know how hot the fire was, and you can sort of tell by the depth, and to see that it didn't spread. The rim of the basketball hoop is still up in the garage of the house. The two neighboring houses are virtually untouched. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because of the bravery and the training and the heroism of our firefighters. And as I said, the whole world watched and saw what Western New York's all about. So everyone was just amazing, and I just wanted to come here most of all and say thanks. Watching from afar was inspiring, and coming up close is even more so. Just one firefighter I met over at the previous firehouse, that's Clarence Center Firehouse. I'm not going to mention his name, he's a modest fellow, I'm sure, but he broke his wrist rushing to the fire. Clarence Center Firehouse is a minute from the scene, and didn't matter. Had someone put a glove on over it and proceeded to fight the fire. And that's what our firefighters are all about. That's what our first responders are all about. That's what Western New York is all about. Let me just say a couple of things, because there are questions here about what happened. I want to say two things that Secretary Ray LaHood, who I knew when he served in Congress, he's from Central Illinois, he's a fine person, always been a supporter of our first responders, whether it be police, fire, EMS, who all deserve the thanks here. But he mentioned two things to me. I asked him about the concern that it seemed the NTSB and the FAA had different recommendations for icing procedures. We don't know if it's ice that brought down the plane. That's not our job. NTSB will make their analysis as they go through everything, so I'm not going to say whether it was or wasn't. But in the terms of icing, one of the things that was troubling was it seems that the NTSB recommended that the plane be controlled manually, but the FAA did not make that a rule, a mandatory rule. And LaHood says he is going to work out the differences and make sure this is done the right way and done quickly, so this will not happen again. And there won't be this confusion as to what the right rule is when there might be ice on the plane. Because right now there's a dispute basically between the FAA and the NTSB as to whether it's best to go on autopilot or do the controls manually. The second thing he told me is this horrible tragedy has brought the need to have somebody in charge of the FAA. As you know, right now there's an acting administrator who really is not the full-fledged person, that they've recommended someone. It's on the President's desk, and they expect to have a name to head the FAA very, very quickly. And I think it's somebody the public, I know who it is, I'm not allowed to say till the President makes an official appointment, but it's somebody who will please everybody who cares about safety in the air. I think those are the only points that I want to make here, except, again, to say how terrible this tragedy was and how proud I am of the people of Western New York in their response.